This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. I am Rashni Jain. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, I'd like to welcome you all to this online meeting. Please take a moment to review the guidelines for this online meeting posted in the chat window. I now request the moderator, Mr. Lakshmipati, to introduce the speaker and start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rajani. Good evening, everyone. I am Lakshmipati. I'll be moderating this meeting. Agricultureinformation.com likes to welcome to this meeting Dr. Yugraj Yadava, the Director of Bay of Bengal Intergovernmental Organization, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Dr. Yugraj Yadava will be speaking on the topic Value Chain in Marine Fisheries in India. I now request the speaker to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Lakshmipati. Can you
You're
hear
welcome.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So the title of my presentation is Upgrading Marine Fisheries Value Chain in India. I made a similar presentation some 5 months back in Agriculture Information. So I hope that the participants in today's meeting are new. But even if there are some old participants, they would find some new information in my presentation. My presentation at the end also includes a video film which may be of interest to the viewers. So with this, Mr. Lakshmipati, I would start my presentation.
Please go ahead.
The marine fisheries is highly diverse in India. In fact, it is one of the most diverse commercial marine fisheries in the world. Many species are local favorites, generating their own value chain. For example, the pomfrets, they have their own niche markets in many coastal states. Similarly, there are many varieties which are very popular in their local areas, and they have their own value chain. I have mentioned two species which otherwise have a pan-India demand. For example, shrimps and also the pomfrets. So from the diagram that you see on the right-hand side of the PowerPoint, you will find the 6 groups, basically 5 groups and one which includes others, that also displays the diversity of the marine fisheries in India. On the nature of fish supply and demand, although fisheries production has increased many-fold in the last 2 to 3 decades, but the supply of specific fish species is still low. Therefore, there is a diverse consumption basket. It's not uniform throughout the country. It's highly diverse. Some areas liking some varieties, other areas liking the other varieties. Therefore, no fish can exactly be called as pan-India fish. If you go to Europe or to the Western world, there are very limited number of species, and perhaps one species could be liked by almost the entire population. This is not the case in the tropical countries, and India is an excellent example, where even from state to state, the preferences, they vary, and therefore what we said, that no fish can be called as a pan-India fish. Broadly, I would say that the inland areas in the country have a preference for freshwater fishes, and the coastal areas, they like the marine species. Here the table shows you again some of the major groups. For example, crustaceans have a pan-India consumption. Demersal fish also has pan-India. And I say demersal, the varieties which stay at the bottom of the water. The freshwater and diadromous fish species, they have a mostly inland area preference. Marine fish, coastal areas, molluscans and cephalopods, they are new entrants to the cuisine and they have very niche markets. They neither have a pan-coastal preference nor pan-inland preference. Rather, they have very niche markets. And pelagic species like sardines, mackerels, they have a coastal India preference. Coming to the fisheries trade scenario, a very interesting picture emerges when we look at the fisheries trade. While India is considered to be self-sufficient in fish production, and we also export a vast surplus every year. However, after globalization, we also see that there is import of fish in India, and this import is increasing. During 2010 to 2019, in a span of 9 years, the import doubled from 29,000 tons to 60,000 tons, which you see on the graph on the right side of the PowerPoint. We don't have a very clear picture of this import, and we assume that there is a hidden domestic market for the imports. However, we also know that many imports, they relate to cold water species imported from the Western world and largely catering to the five-star hotels and restaurants. For example, salmon, trouts, they're all imported and they cater largely to the five-star hotels and the niche restaurants. Coming to the structure of marine fisheries value chain in India, I have 2 slides to demonstrate this, and we have taken this value chain for domestic and export fishes in Gujarat from a document which was produced by Yes Bank in 2015. So as you see from the value chain, we start with the fishermen who collect or harvest fish. It goes to the commission agent, and the weighing, loading, transportation takes place at this stage. The transport is largely with ice and the fish is unprocessed. From commission agent, it also goes to vendors and still remains unprocessed. And from vendors, it goes to consumers. So this is a very typical value chain that you largely see in the coastal areas. This is to say that the point where the fish is landed to the point where it reaches the consumer, the only value addition is the use of ice in some places, but in many places, even ice is not used, and the fish travels through the commission agent to the vendors and finally to the consumers. But when you go to the export value chain, which is in the bottom part of the slide, then things become different. So here again, the collection takes place from the fishermen, and there are purchase men, factory agents appointed by processors or commission agents. And these people, they take the fish after weighing, loading, and transport it to the factory. Here, the use of ice is quite significant. And then it goes to the processor exporter, where it could be stored for 7-8 days depending on demand, or sometimes even more. And finally, it goes to the reefer vans and then to the export. So you see the difference between the value chain for domestic consumption and the value chain for exports. The structure of the marine fisheries value chain in India, as I showed, the model in essence captures the structure with major actors. I have not gone into the finer, actions. We have only shown the major actors. However, behind the scene, there could be other influential actors such as input suppliers, money lenders, auctioneers, and of course, the management committees which work in fishing harbors or fish landing centers. Although different activities in the value chain usually fall in place, and it has been happening for the last 70, 80 years, but still there is no guarantee as most contracts are verbal and not standardized. Therefore, the result is usually undervaluation. There is a supply glut. Lack of ice is one of the main reasons of the poor quality of fish and the problems that affect the value chain. Cold storage, transport, these are the other issues, and in fact, they are common problems, they are not very specific, but they're very common problems. And the post-harvest losses are partly technical and partly structural. So we feel that these issues can be addressed to a large extent and the post-harvest losses in India can be reduced. I am referring here to a parliamentary panel on post-harvest losses that gave its report some few months back. And the report says that fisheries sector suffered a high post-harvest loss of rupees 61,000 crore, including rupees 15,000 crore in marine fisheries. So from these figures, which were given by the parliamentary panel, you can estimate the huge loss that happens to the marine fishery sector and of course to the fishery sector in general. And if the value chain is improved, this loss can be reduced to a very large extent. Now, how do we improve the marine fisheries value chain? And here we list the role of post-harvest management. On the right-hand side, you see a schematic diagram which in fact tells you how to spoil the fish. So you have the catch and it is subject to pollution. This pollution could be from the defecation and urination, which normally the fishermen, in the absence of toilets in their boats, they do it in the open sea or in the open water. At the site, the fuel discharge also contaminates the water. Now the catch is landed on the board fishing vessel. And here the spoiling is initiated due to unscientific handling. Although fishermen take care of the species that are meant for export, but otherwise there is unscientific handling, there is poor quality of ice, and there is poor storage facility on the boat. Then it comes to the next stage where the catch is landed at the harbor or fish landing center. Here again, at these landing sites, the amenities are poor, the sites are very poorly managed, and there is hardly any maintenance on day-to-day basis. And finally, what happens? That substandard and contaminated catch reaches to the consumer. And there is low value for money, there are health hazards, and in case proper care is not taken for exports, there is export rejection. And we feel that positive interventions can change this story. We are also of the view that addressing the structural issues in value chain should be carried out with a long-term planning of a minimum 5 to 10 year span. However, improving catch handling to preserve the intrinsic value of the catch is relatively straightforward. There is no rocket science here. It's a very simple procedure. Take ice and preserve the fish in ice. And as we showed, that the poor handling is also a result of limitations and lack of awareness or incentives. Incentives for the fishermen, awareness for both fishermen and the consumers. So whatever a consumer gets, he buys. Now coming to the possible solutions, the parliamentary committee recommended the following: modernizing the existing harbors and establishing more cold storage facilities, ensuring the availability of more refrigerated trucks and vans for transport of fishes, and to allocate sufficient funds to the fisheries department so that the post-harvest losses can be minimized, and hence safeguarding the interests of various stakeholders in the fisheries sector. Now, the key takeaway here is that external solutions as above are necessary. However, stakeholder buy-in and involvement is more important. Unless and until the stakeholders are not involved, nothing much can happen. Most of the fishing harbors in the country are suffering from negligence in spite of having world-class infrastructure. Now, I'm changing the gear, and this slide relates to how the demographic changes, and it also relates to the emergence of new markets. Most of you who buy fish on a regular basis would have definitely come across the online markets. The growing urbanization in India is now creating new scope of online marketing, which is a result of both technology and urbanization. I think the expansion of online markets before COVID-19 was at a very slow pace, but following COVID-19, there is a proliferation of online marketing, and which is likely to stay with the growing urbanization. Especially in metro cities, families now mostly comprise working couples who may prefer to order online than spending time shopping in a wet market. And we feel that at least in the metro cities and also in the tier 2 cities, in the years to come, the online marketing would be consuming a very major share of the retail marketing of fish in India. We also see that the government is very keen to improve the value chain in marine fisheries, and the Prime Minister's Matsya Sampada Yojana has been launched in June 2020, and it's a huge funding arrangement, 20,000 crores in total, and there's a huge amount also earmarked for improvement in the value chain. Some of the key elements that are there in the PM Matsya Sampada Yojana include development of modern fishing harbors and landing centers, and modernization and upgrading the existing ones, improving navigability and efficacy of the existing fishing harbors and landing centers, improving the post-harvest infrastructure, including cold chain for reduction of post-harvest losses, and these will be developed and also strengthened. Development of modern wholesale fish markets, including supermarkets, retail fish markets and outlets, mobile fish and live fish markets, and e-markets in e-trading of fish and fish products will also be supported. And finally, the IT-enabled traceability and labeling system will be supported. So these are some of the key elements that you would find in the Prime Minister's Matsya Sampada Yojana, which is now under implementation with a huge amount of funding assistance. Now, coming to the closing part of my presentation, the diversity of marine fisheries sector is yet to be fully captured in its value chain. It is unfortunate that even after 70 years of planned development, we have not been able to fully capture the value chain. And if we are able to capture, then in this process, the marine fisheries value chain is likely to have scope of upgradation. New market opportunities, as I mentioned, online market, are arising with demographic changes. Cleaning, and cutting of fish at the point of sale has become a normal now. This is also happening in the wet markets, unlike before, where nobody would clean the fish for you. But now there is one section of workers. You buy the fish, take it to them, they will clean, gut, and cut. So this is a new normal now. And finally, the direction of change can lead to strengthening of online marketing. But we are also worried, and it is still unknown, that how fishers will benefit from this online marketing. And more so, the fisherwomen who do a huge amount of retailing, how they would be affected if online marketing becomes a major point of sale from the harvesters to the consumers. Now, friends, I would be showing you a video film, but a few points on this video film. My organization carried out a pilot called the Orofish model. This was developed under a World Bank funded project during 2016 to 2018 to improve tuna fisheries. The pilot was carried out in Vaithikupam village in the Union Territory of Puducherry. During the pilot, the tuna landed by fishermen who did day fishing and who were artisanal. We covered these boats, and the tuna which is caught by these artisanal fishermen is marketed as wholesome and sustainable tuna. Usually, tuna landed by artisanal fishers, which is in low volume, are clubbed with tuna from bigger cousins, which means those who land high volume. So the result is that the revenue per unit is usually relatively lower for artisanal fishers. But by declubbing them and repositioning them, they are now able to earn a better price. So I would now show you this video, which is for about 12-13 minutes, and you would see, how a small model has been created, which has the potential to be replicated pan-India, especially in the coastal areas and coastal states. So please stay tuned. I would now be loading the video. Are you able to see the video? Lakshmipati, are you able to see the video?
Yes, we are able to see the video. Let's see whether we can hear the audio also. So sometimes audio we may not be able to hear. Let's see.
Important source of food and nutrition and livelihoods.
Yes, we are getting the audio also.
India.
Okay, fine. Good.
Its contributions to the economy are significant. Today, India is one of the top global players in fisheries and aquaculture. With an average annual growth of 7.5% in the last 5 years, fish production has now touched about 14 million metric tons, with the marine sector contributing to 4.2 million metric tons. The balance coming from inland fisheries and aquaculture. The Government of India, in its recently launched program, the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, or PMMSY, aims at augmenting fish production and productivity at a sustained average annual growth rate of about 9% to achieve a target of 22 million metric.
I did a mistake and you.
By 2025. The seas around India abound in a variety of fish species, of which tunas form.
Dr. Yugraj, you wanted me to share that YouTube video?
I think better you can share it, yeah.
Yeah, I will try.
Going fine, and I just stopped my voice and everything went.
Estimates say that about 230,000 metric tons of yellowfin, skipjack, and big
Are a
item
source of food and nutrition and livelihoods for millions of people in India. Its contributions to the economy are significant. Today, India is one of the top global players in fisheries and aquaculture. With an average annual growth of 7.5% in the last 5 years, fish production has now touched about 14 million metric tons, with the marine sector contributing to 4.2 million metric tons, the balance coming from inland fisheries and aquaculture. The Government of India, in its recently launched program, the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, or PMMSY, aims at augmenting fish production and productivity at a sustained average annual growth rate of about 9% to achieve a target of 22 million metric tons by 2025. The seas around India abound in a variety of fish species, of which tunas form an important resource. Estimates say that about 230,000 metric tons of yellowfin, skipjack, and big-eye tunas can be harvested on a sustainable basis from the exclusive economic zone of the country. Despite the abundance of tunas, India has not been able to gainfully harness the resource. The prime reasons being the extensive use of gill nets and poor on-board handling practices. To make fishing trips profitable, tuna fishermen mostly rely on quantity rather than quality. Result, the net worth of tuna fishery has remained low and it has not been able to generate the revenue that it ought to. In this tug-of-war between volume and value, the middlemen have been controlling the trade of tuna fishery in the country. The Bay of Bengal program under its JEF and World Bank funded Ocean Partnerships project, designed a business model to capture value in yellowfin tuna domestic supply chain based on three major objectives relating to the three P's: planet, profit, and people, or ecological, economic, and social sustainability. In improving the value chain, the first objective was to promote the use of handline for tuna fishing and proper handling and onboard preservation. The second objective was to establish partnership between the harvesters and the processors, a step towards reducing the role of middlemen. These two objectives led us to the final objective of moving from volume to value. Let us now move to Vaithikuppam village in Puducherry and show how we achieved the objectives. In mid-2017, BOBP identified Anita, who, following her family profession of fisheries, was doing a small-time value addition work from a dressing unit in the village and selling the products to shops in Puducherry. Muthuvel, Anita's husband, also a fisherman by profession, helped her in the day-to-day activities. In agreement with Anita and Muthuvel, BOBP decided to upgrade her unit into a modern small processing unit using the existing facility and joining her adjacent piece of land to the unit. After agreement on the design and the additional area required to make a modern processing unit, civil works started in late 2017. While BOBP prepared the design, the Central Institute of Fisheries Technology assisted in ensuring that the unit followed the best practices in handling seafood. The cost towards civil works for renovation of the existing area and addition of the new area was supported by the Tata Trust. BOBP provided the major equipment. Anita purchased a generator set, fans, insect repellents, and of course, the land. Anita and BOBP also identified 20 fishermen from Vaithikuppam village and the adjoining village Nadukuppam and provided them with ice boxes so that they could bring tuna preserved in ice. Muthuvel, trained in using hand lines and onboard handling of tuna, provided training to the fishermen. Anita agreed to buy the yellowfin tuna brought in good quality by the 20 fishermen at a premium over market price. Thus, a partnership between the harvesters and a processor was established. Once the new unit came up, the Fisheries Technology Institute provided hands-on training to Anita and her team in following the protocols for maintenance of hygiene and sanitation in the unit. Anita's dressing unit, now fully renovated and made near compliant to to HACCP requirements became fully functional by the later half of 2018. With all the required approvals from the Puducherry municipality and the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, Anita started making tuna loins and steaks and created a brand name, Oro Fish, for her products. Anita's reputation of a quality tuna fish supplier now started reaching far and wide. A Japanese tuna retailer from Gurugram in Haryana is sourcing tuna from her. Some of the top seafood restaurants in Puducherry have started buying her products and are very happy with the quality of tuna that Anita supplies.
Hi, I'm Jay Adams. I'm from England and I'm the head chef here at Coromandel Cafe and Restaurant. Here at the restaurant we're using Oro Fish. I've actually created a whole new section using Oro Fish products because without their products I couldn't really be doing sushi or sashimi or tuna taktaki, anything like that. So for me it's really amazing to have such a good product here in Pondicherry.
In November 2019, the Japanese consulate in Bengaluru also invited Anita to put up a stall at the seafood festival. Anita has demonstrated how value chains can be improved with sustainable harvesting practices, proper onboard handling and preservation, and moving away from volume to value. The team of fishermen working with Anita are also happy as they are now getting almost double the price than what they were getting earlier. We have learned many lessons from this model. Small processing units and partnerships between the harvesters and processors can revolutionize the seafood value chain in India. It can reduce the role of middlemen and shorten the value chain. Thus, a win-win situation for all. Anita's initiative demonstrates how entrepreneurship can be created in fishery sector and how women can play a greater role in the value chain. Initiatives like this will also help the government in achieving its targeted growth rate of 9% in the next 5 years.
இந்த ஆரோ ஃபிஷ் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி இந்த ஃபெசிலிட்டியோட இருக்கிறதுக்கு காரணம் யாருன்னா பே ஆஃப் பெங்கால் ப்ரோக்ராம் அண்ட் டாடா ட்ரஸ்ட் வேர்ல்டு பேங்க் இவங்க 3 பேரால நாங்கள் இந்த ஆரோ ஃபிஷ் நல்லா டெவலப் ஆகி நல்ல ஒரு ஃபெசிலிட்டியோட சந்தோஷமான லைஃப் நாங்கள் வாழ்ந்துட்டு இருக்கோம்.
Anita and Muthuvel are a happy couple now. 1,000 Anitas can indeed change the face of seafood value chain in India and reduce the wastage of precious protein.
So I think with this, my presentation concludes. And once again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak on the marine fisheries value chain in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yugraj Yadava, for an excellent presentation and talk. I now request the participants to ask their questions if there are any. We'll also be posting the speaker's contact details in the chat window. Now, any questions, please, participants? Any questions? Any questions coming up later also can be directed to the speaker, whose details have been given in the chat window. So right now, any questions, participants? All right, no questions coming up. I think Mr. Mohan has a question now. Yes, Mr. Mohan.
Good evening, Mr. Lakshmipati, thanks a lot for an excellent and detailed presentation by Dr. Yugraj Yadav. And I have a couple of questions because your organization is directly related to the government. If in that case, like Orifish, what type of financial support you are giving to the such type of entrepreneurs, not only from the direct fishermen to the processing unit. If a exporter company want to export in a small way, is your organization can guide them and assist them. So if you want to get all, what is the direct approach to contact you?
Yeah, you see, first of all, we are not directly connected with the government. The government, of course, has created this organization, but we have the freedom to work with the entire range of stakeholders. Now, for Orofish, we had the funding from World Bank. So we created this pilot. And as I mentioned, that other than the land which was provided by Anita, the rest everything was funded by the Bay of Bengal program. Now, this was a model, and we can create more models if the funding is available. But otherwise, we can always provide the technical assistance to any entrepreneur who is willing to, come to us and seek our advice. So that assistance, technical assistance, is always available. And my contact number and telephone number are all given. So please feel free to contact if you have any query or if you wish to proceed in any manner in which we can assist you technically. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate, because the place where I live in is have opportunity for the both fishes, different varieties of fishes, and as well as Vanami prawns. Like you might be well aware of the place Guntur and Chirala, all those places. We have plenty of big processing units, but that is all financial related projects, say around 40 crores or 50 crores or something like that. But being an exporter and entrepreneur, if I want to deal a different model, discussing with you, telling about my ideas and sharing in a project manner, as you said, now you're no way, you can have it's something autonomous board where you can take a decision. I will definitely be in touch with you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohan.
Thanks a lot, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan, for asking those questions. Mr. Nayan, any questions from your side? Okay, I think we have come. Yes, Mr. Nayan, do you have any questions? Okay, no. Okay, thank you. We seem to have now completed the round of questions. I'd like to thank the speaker, Ms. Dr. Yugraj Yadava, on behalf of Agriculture Information, for taking this time to speak with us. I now request the organizer of the meeting, Ms. Rajini Jain, to please close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lakshmipati. I like to thank the speaker, Dr. Yugraj Yadava, for taking the time to talk with us. I also like to thank all the participants for their time. The meeting will now be closed.
Thank you. Thank you.